Hello, hello. My name is Kim Addis. I am the president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching and the co-founder of the Journal That Talks Back. For those of you who have never heard of the Journal That Talks Back, it's a new coaching service that we are offering to young professionals. Please check it out. We're super excited about it. thejournalthattalksback.com. Come and look at the website. It's a beautiful thing. Today, I am super excited to introduce to you our guest. Her name is Michelle Seiler Tucker. Did I get it right, Michelle?
You did.
And she is the CEO of a company called Seiler Tucker. But more interestingly, or just as interestingly, she is the author of a book called Exit Rich. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about you. You live in New Orleans?
I do live in, we say New Orleans, but yeah, I do live in New Orleans. I'm from Long Beach, California, moved here about 18 years ago.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about what is Seiler Tucker, and then you'll tell us about your book.
Sure. So Seiler Tucker Incorporated is a mergers and acquisitions firm, but we don't just specialize in selling companies. We specialize in buying, selling, fixing, and growing businesses. I partner with business owners, investing my capital, my resources, core competencies to put my partners on a road to sell program so we can exit their business in 3 to 5 years for their desired sales price. I also buy businesses and flip them. We sell businesses, we merge businesses. So we're really a full shop entrepreneurship M&A firm, which most M&A firms just sell companies.
And what kinds of companies are you looking for? What kind of companies do you grow, fix, flip? Tell us, is there a niche you're in? Tell us a little bit about that.
So as far as selling, I've been in this industry a little over 20 years. Personally, I've sold over 500 transactions, 500 businesses. My firm has done much more than that altogether. And we're industry agnostic. So we pretty much sell businesses in every vertical you can imagine. Right now, we're selling an agriculture business. We sell mining. I mean, you name it, we pretty much have been in it. And our sweet spot is my sweet spot are businesses $10 million and up in purchase price. However, we do have a team that will sell businesses that are smaller than that. As far as who do I partner with? Well, that's tricky because it really depends. I have to look at, I've got to make sure it's a niche business. I'm never going to partner in a restaurant industry. I got to make sure it's something niche. I got to make sure that whoever I'm partnering with is coachable. Yeah. And I got to make sure they will grow themselves because you will never grow a business beyond what you can grow the owner.
I couldn't agree more.
And I gotta be managing member. I don't know if you've ever watched The Profit on CNBC with Marcus Lemonis, but he always says, I'm in charge. Well, same with me. I have to be managing member. As far as buying and flipping, it's really when I see a good opportunity where I can leverage the assets and know that I can turn around and flip it pretty quickly and identify. I look at all businesses based upon the 6 Ps that I talk about in my book, Exit Rich. So I look at to see, what are the strongest Ps, what are the weakest Ps, how soon can I turn that business around and get it back on the market? And I already explained about selling. As far as acquisitions go, we really help buyers. Gosh, I've been in this industry for over 20 years. I can't even begin to tell you how many buyers we help leave corporate America and buy a business, afford a much better quality of life, financial freedom, and the opportunity to be their own boss.
And do you work with primarily product-based companies or service-based companies as well?
Both. So we have product-based companies, we have service-based companies. Like I said, pretty much industry agnostic. We're more EBITDA specific than we are industry agnostic because most of our buyers have a target of at least $1 million in EBITDA. EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just kind of curious about what you find in terms of companies that need a turnaround. Is it a common thing that they need help with, or is it unique to every single business?
So again, we evaluate the business on the 6 Ps, which is people, product, processes, proprietary, patrons, and profits. So usually when companies need turnaround, they think they need a turnaround because they're not making any money. Well, that's not the issue. Lack of profits is never the problem. It's a symptom of symptom of not having the right people in place, symptom of being in a dying industry instead of a thriving industry and not innovating and marketing, symptom of not having your processes buttoned up where you can run efficiently, and a symptom of having customer concentration versus customer diversification. So when I say it's a lack of profits, we really dig in to find out what the real issues are. We also have a road to sell program because, like Steve Forbes says, 80% of businesses will never sell. So that means business owners only have a 20% chance of success when they go to sell their business. So we really dig in to find out what the biggest issues are. Usually, Kim, the biggest issues are the owner. I always say fish stinks from the head. And the owner is typically the bottleneck. They're working in their business, not on their business. And they're hiring people that maybe they feel like don't have the same intellect that they do, because that they can control, instead of hiring people smarter than them.
Got it. Yeah, of course. I see that often. Amazing. Very, very interesting. Okay. So you are on the Frame of Mind Coaching podcast. What is your greatest challenge today?
I would say my greatest challenge and all of my clients' greatest challenge are employees.
Okay. Tell me about that challenge.
So the biggest challenge for us, and especially for the companies I own and for my clients, I was on the phone last night till 12 o'clock last night with a client that we're selling for $55 million. And I said, Michelle, oh my gosh, we just can't deal with these employees anymore. Employees has always been a challenge, but even more difficult now because of the pandemic and because, everybody thinks that the grass is greener on the other side, and they're ready to jump ship for $1 more an hour, Yeah. And she says everybody has come to her for raises after raises after raises, and they don't listen and they don't follow policy. One of her biggest issues was, we're in due diligence right now, about to close on the sale of the business, and they can't give us end of year financials because they all decided to take everybody in that department. They said they're taking 2 weeks off, like it or not, and they're all leaving at the same time, even though the policy is written that you get 1 week. It has to be approved in advance, and you have to have a replacement in your department. So you can't all take off at the same time. Well, they all took off at the same time, left her in a bind, and the partners were not able to go anywhere for their, holiday. And most importantly, they're not able to wrap up the end of the year until people start coming back. But the biggest issue is, look, I have clients that come into me all the time. Even my CPA says, Michelle, we have a nonprofit. We'll hire somebody, they don't show up the next day. My husband and I have medical clinics. We'll hire somebody, they go to lunch, they don't come back. Or you train somebody for 3 months.
I've heard this over and over and over again. In fact, this is why we launched the Journal That Talks Back, this specific reason, because we have found that there is a huge disconnect between employers and their employees, and they don't really know what's going on in the minds of their employees. And so they are shocked and surprised when exactly that story. There's a lunch meeting, exactly that. Someone gets up, goes to the bathroom, never returns, right? Yeah. Things like that are happening, and it's not uncommon. And so what I feel is very, very important is to really take the time to bridge that gap. So for us, and I'm not here to plug, but I'm here to plug, right? But
help solve my customers' problems, and we can sell their business quicker.
Well, this is the thing. So let me back up for a minute, right? Sure. So we coach executives. So let me help you understand why people don't do what they are supposed to do, right? Okay. Which is really what you're saying. Why aren't these employees doing what's in the policy? Why aren't they doing what they're supposed to be doing? And there's one reason, is because their thinking is not aligned with that policy, is not aligned with that goal, is not aligned with the company, is not aligned with the owner.
Yeah.
And the problem is the owner has no clue what the thinking is of their staff.
Mm-hmm.
Wearing a blindfold.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is the owner typically doing? They're looking at what the staff is doing. Well, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So the owner goes nuts. And what I encourage owners to do is stop for a minute and say, forget about what they're doing. Try to understand what they're thinking.
Mhm.
and how their thinking leads them to the actions that they are making.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. So how do they do that? Because a lot of times you'll ask employees and they don't tell you the truth.
Of course, they don't tell you the
Oh,
truth. And so, I mean, you have, what was it? Your 6 Ps,
yes.
right? Well, we
Yeah.
have a 5-step process that we use for coaching individuals. And what I
Mhm.
find is that most leaders they're not equipped to coach their team. And so what they do is they make a whole bunch of assumptions and then they
Mhm.
work off of those assumptions. And then they're shocked when their team members aren't working with the same assumptions. And so,
Mhm.
how do we find out what people are thinking? We need to learn to ask them, but in a way that allows us to, number one, so step one, put our own stories aside,
Mhm.
right? So typically an owner goes in and says, here's what I want, here's what I need. They don't have time to get the story. They don't have time to ask. They have stuff to do. They have
Right.
agendas, right? Like they have goals to reach. And so a lot of leaders are not slowing down. They're not taking the time to literally sit with their employees and say, okay, like, tell me what's going on. What's the story? So that's step number two. Step number
Mhm.
one, put your story aside.
Mhm.
Step number two, get their story. Step number three is dig under the story. So someone
Mhm.
might say, yeah, like I'm tired. That's the story. That's all they give you. They give you a little tiny piece of it. But a really good leader or a really good coach will say, well, tell me why you're tired. What happened? And they want all the juicy details. Oh, you went out last night. Where did you go? Who did you go with? What happened? What made you stay out so late? Did you
Mhm.
have a good time? And on and on and on. And we're not taking the time to ask, to inquire, to understand where they're coming from. And so many leaders come across as uncaring, uninterested.
Mhm.
So in your case, what you're describing is employees who say, yeah, I'm taking my 2 weeks off. I'm legally entitled to them.
My owners, yeah, my seller, not me.
No, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're not, and they signed a policy stating what the policy is and how much time they get and when they can take it,
Right.
and they have to have backup.
Right. But clearly there's a disconnect. They're not communicating. So
Right.
the owners are surprised when the employees aren't following the policy. But when did they last discuss this? Why is this such a surprise? Why isn't there planning? Why isn't there conversation? And
Mhm.
so what's missing is that the owners are not really understanding what these employees are believing, where they're coming
Mhm.
from. So
Mhm.
chances are they believe, yeah, everybody gets time off over the holidays. I'm entitled to it. It's the law,
It's not
right?
the law to take off 2 weeks.
But that's what they believe, right? That's what they believe. And so what I'm really, really trying to say here, and
Yeah.
this would be extremely valuable for you, is that many leaders would benefit from from acquiring coaching skills.
Mhm.
Leaders think that they know what to do. And so they wish that their employees would just do what they're told. Do the
Mhm.
things that I tell you to do. Do
Mhm.
your job. Do the things. And what
Kinda
I'm
like when we tell our kids.
just do the stuff. And what leaders are missing is that doing follows thought. First we
Yeah.
think, then we do. And if your employees aren't doing what you want them to do, it's because they're not thinking in a way that's lined up with your desired outcome.
Mhm.
And so it's important not just to say, hey, just do this. It's important to understand how they're thinking.
Mhm.
And that's where coaching skills come into play. That's where the ability to ask a whole bunch of questions come into play. Right? Because the truth is, we think that, okay, we'll just sell our company, we'll just implement the systems, we'll just do all the things. But those employees could create a real barrier to success, as you're describing.
Mhm.
So, what's the cost?
Well, the cost for them is, you'd have to ask them, but the cost for them, because they're not key employees, they're not going to really disrupt the sale. It might be delayed a little bit, but they're not going to disrupt it. I think the big cost for them is frustration, losing, frustration, having to do it themselves. I think one of the biggest mistakes they're making too is they're asking the employees to write the processes down instead of, them going in or hiring a professional to document the processes. And then they're frustrated when the employees are not writing the processes down. But I think for them, like I said, it's frustration. It costs them time. It costs them money. Costs them probably sleepless nights. And then it costs them turnover. And we all know that turnover is one of the biggest costs in business today.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you say, they're asking their employees to write the processes and the employees aren't writing the processes. Maybe the employees in their minds are say, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to begin. That's a huge task. That's overwhelming to me. And so again, there's the same disconnect that occurs.
Right.
Right. So they don't even know why the processes aren't being written. They just know that they aren't being written. And so understanding what's really stopping someone from performing is important. And it has to do with their thinking. It has to do with their beliefs. And so in your case, you have two interesting kind of groups of people that you are working with, the buyer, the seller, right? That person. But then the top level key employees who are still remaining at the company.
Yep. Most of the employees will remain at the company. Employees don't know the company's for sale in most cases. The only time the employees would ever know is if the seller is really dumb and doesn't listen to us when we say, don't tell your employees. and or the key employee needs to know, like a CFO or something like that. But in most cases, employees never know business is for sale. So
you see, in my mind, there are these two groups of people. Again, it's the buyer seller, the one that you're working with directly, and then the next level right under that. And those are the two groups of people that really need coaching. Right now, you're coaching that upper level. You're telling them, here's what you need to be doing. But they also have a thinking challenge with respect to selling their business. It could be that they're attached to their business. It could be that they're afraid of what's going to come next. It could be that they're concerned about the financial repercussions of buying or selling. Both sides, right? They have all these things that they're dealing with emotionally. And at the same time, that gets transmitted, even though it's not consciously transmitted, it gets transmitted and it creates like this fear, this anxiety, this discomfort in an organization. And so again, my thought is that when you're engaging with a buyer or seller, let's say the seller, you're working with both upper levels in the organization, the top, the owner, but also the immediate senior leadership team right after, because there's going to be an impact. And that might mean that you're not working with them directly, but you're partnering with a company that says, okay, you need to take care of this group because there's going to be some upheaval in the process that will smooth the waters out for you. Because again, there's this disconnect, there's this lack of communication taking place between what the owner needs and what the team is delivering. And every single time there's a performance issue, every single time, there are no exceptions to this rule. Every single time that there's a performance issue, there's a thinking gap. And most times when we see a performance issue, we want to address it with either punishment or a correction in action, right? Here's what I need you to do. You need to do this by this date. But very few leaders look at the thinking that drives the behavior. And that's really the key for leaders who are dealing with employees who aren't performing, who aren't delivering what is needed, is to look at the thinking. And that's why we work with leaders and teach them how to do that. Like, I know it's a little bit of abstract.
It's not abstract. I'm hearing everything. I agree. It's not abstract. I've been in business for very many years, so it's not abstract at all. It's always a problem. It's a common denominator. It's a bigger problem now that the pandemic is here, a much bigger problem. But it's always been an issue.
Always been an issue
with every business owner. I mean, very seldom do I have a business owner who says, I got a great team. They're wonderful. They do everything. I mean, it happens every now and then. but it's not the norm.
Right. And again, I find that the greatest leaders have coaching skills, and many of those leaders that are frustrated with their team are lacking those skills. And so, one of the things that I've done over the course of my career is I've literally studied and asked for owners of companies to provide us with actual data. And the data is this: I want you to rate your own coaching skills, and I want you to rate your satisfaction with your team's performance. And it's an absolute straight line. Those leaders who have a higher level of coaching skills are also dramatically more satisfied with the performance of their team. It's wild. It's literally a straight line. And so when you look at your team and you say, my team isn't performing, you said it at the beginning of this conversation. What did
I
you
didn't say my team. I said my
No,
owners.
I understand. No, I understand.
Let's just make that clear for people who
Very
listen to this
clear.
podcast.
But what you said at the beginning was the fish head or something like that.
Fish stinks from the head.
That's right. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So when there's a performance problem, we need to look at the leader and how the leader is actually going in and coaching the team. Right. So that's the issue. And so right now the leader wants to leave. They want to sell, and they're not in the mood to coach.
Yeah.
Right. They're done with their team. They just want out at this point. And their frustrations are probably higher. Yes.
Yeah. Of course.
And so this is I
have business owners that call me all the time and say, I want to sell. And I'm like, what's your number one reason? I hate my employees. I can't do it anymore. I hate employees.
Those are the people who really need to learn how to coach. And those are the people who need to get coached first. And those are the people who might save their companies, although that's not the business you're in, but those are the people who might.
Well, let's back up on that statement. That's not the business I am in. That's not true. That is a business I'm in, which is why I have a road to sell, which is why I partner with business owners to help save companies from going out of business.
Perfect.
Number one. Number two, you can't sell a failing business. So if the business is going down, like the Titanic, the likelihood of you maximizing value on that sell is slim to none. You're going to sell for pennies on the dollar, close your business, or even worse, file bankruptcy. So I am in the business of saving businesses because that's how I can sell businesses.
I apologize. You're right. You're 100% right. But so this is interesting, right? You're in the business of making businesses work, and you're looking at the 6 P's, and I think they're all super important. And
the number one P is people. You don't grow a business, you grow people, and people will build the business. You don't build a business, you build the people, and people build the business. That's my first.
But if the leader isn't equipped to build the people, if that leader doesn't have the skill set to build the people, you're stuck.
Yep.
And
so a lot of entrepreneurs need to hire that person to manage their team, because most entrepreneurs are not always the best managers or the best leaders. So they either have to get coaching for themselves, or they have to hire someone as a liaison. My husband did that. He has a great liaison that handles all the employee problems because he doesn't want to deal with it. And I think if an owner themselves don't want to deal with it, then you have to hire that person that has tremendous leadership skills to be that manager, to be that team leader.
Yes. And you're right. Sometimes it's better to hand it off to someone else. And sometimes it's really valuable to learn those skills yourself, because they go far across all tracks of life, whether you're a parent and you're, leading your family, whether you're a business owner leading your team, whether you're a senior leader in an organization and you're also leading your team. Those are really, really valuable skills to have. But
the way I look at it is the owner should be leading the department heads. The department heads should be leading their departments.
Exactly. And they all need those skills, all of them, every single one of them. And so as you're thinking about, all of your areas of development, one of the areas of development absolutely needs to be making sure whoever is leading the people acquires the coaching skills that they need. But before we go, I want to hear about your book, and where can people find it?
Sure. So Exit Rich was launched in June of 2021. It's supposed to come out in 2020, but this pandemic, we had to pivot. So
course.
it's a Wall Street Journal bestseller. It's a USA Today bestseller, endorsed by Steve Forbes, that says Exit Rich is a gold mine for entrepreneurs, as most entrepreneurs leave way too much money on the table. And he also says 80% of businesses will never sell. So you must read Exit Rich. And then Sharon Lechter. Have you heard of Sharon Lechter?
I have not.
Oh, you are the first person that has not heard of Sharon Lechter that I've spoken to. She wrote Rich
I'm
Dad Poor Dad.
Canadian, so who knows? What did she write?
She wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes, we know that book.
Yeah. So she's my co-author. Kevin Harrington, original Shark on Shark Tank, wrote the foreword. So Exit Rich is not about selling your business, Kim. Exit Rich is about building a sustainable, scalable business. So when you're ready to exit, you actually have a sellable asset. The reason 80% of businesses don't sell is because they don't create a business that buyers actually want to buy. So that's what Exit Rich is all about. It's all about the road to sell. It's all about building a sustainable, scalable business that works for you rather than you working for it. Because most business owners have created a glorified job that they go to work at every day versus a business that actually works for them. So Exit Rich is really, like I said, a gold mine for building. And who is it for? It's for all entrepreneurs. It's for anybody that owns a business, operates a business, even acquiring a business, because it tells you what to look for when you're acquiring a company. And so you can get Exit Rich if you're in Canada, go to Amazon because the shipping costs are ridiculous in the United States.
Amazon.com, yes?
Amazon.com. You can also go to your favorite bookstore in the United States. You can also go to exitrichbook.com. And when you buy Exit Rich, we have other golden nuggets, and additional value. Number one, we provide all the operating documents to sell your business. So like sample employee handbooks, non-competes, org charts, to sell your business. We have sample letter of intents, sample purchase agreements. Most business owners have never even seen an LOI. We have due diligence checklists. We have closing documents. Everything you need to operate and sell your business is there. And Kim, I don't know if you know what attorneys cost, but I am convinced that they charge per word. Because if you went to try to recreate all this, it would cost you over $50,000 to do so. And then we also, so we give all that extra value with Extra Rich. Plus, there's video content of me doing deep dives and different strategies and techniques that I've been teaching for the last 20 years. And you and I we're singing the same tune, because if you don't have good people, if you don't have good employees, if you don't have good leadership, it is going to be more difficult to sell. Plus, your business is not going to be sustainable, and you'll never be able to scale it.
I think that what you have here is so important. And I can't tell you how many of my clients would benefit from knowing you and reading your book. So I'm going to put it, a lot of people say, what are the books that I should read? I'm going to read it, but then I'm going to put it in my library of books that people should read. I think it's so important because they are unprepared. Even you're 100% right. All the documentation they need, the contracts, the LOIs, the non-competes, all of that. I can't tell you how many times we have discussed that in coaching. Make sure you have non-compete. Oh, do you have an example of that? Can you send me one that I can use? Right. I cannot tell you how many times I've encountered that. So I am excited to look at your book. I think it's really great. And I hope that perhaps down the road, we'll have a chance to collaborate. I think it's very, very interesting what you do. And there's a very interesting kind of marriage that needs to happen with respect to preparing the company and preparing the leader. And so we should, and
that's why we have the Road to Sell program. And like I said before, fish strings from the head. And I was just on a call with a company the other day, and they have a unique business and they're trying to grow it. And I said, who's the bottleneck? I said, wait, don't answer. Let me answer. You're the bottleneck. And I'm pointing to the owner on the Zoom call. And he's like, yep, I'm the bottleneck, and they need a lot of work. So they're going to be in our Road to Sell program, doing the evaluation, going through the 6 Ps, et cetera. But leadership is a huge, huge, huge deal, because if you don't have the right people, it could kill the deal for sure.
100%.
Yeah. Well, so we definitely should be working together.
Michelle, it was so great to meet you. I can't wait to read your book. Please, again, people, if you want to find it, look at it, look for it on Amazon.com. The book is called Exit Rich. We cannot forget that.
And you can go to exitrichbook.com as well. For anybody that lives in the United States, because you get immediate access to all the bonuses. But if you live in another country, please don't go to exitrichbook.com, because the shipping costs are just, really extremely expensive. And so anyway, also, I was going to tell you that I have a podcast for everyone, all of your listeners that would like to listen, called Exit Rich, and we'll have you on my podcast as well.
Amazing. I look forward to that. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the
Thank you, Kim.
podcast. For those of you who are listening, if you have a business that you want to get ready, that you want to prep to sell, go read the book, go find Michelle. It sounds like she knows her stuff inside and out. Please go and find her. If you have a challenge that you want to talk about on the podcast, please reach out to me. My email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. If you have a challenge that you want to talk about, but maybe not so much on the podcast, please reach out to me as well. My email address, again, is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. And if there is a young person in your world that could use some support, a young professional that maybe could use affordable and accessible executive level coaching, please check out the Journal That Talks Back. It's new, it's exciting. We're super proud of that work, and we'd love your support. Like, share, do all the things that you're supposed to do with a podcast, and we will see you next week. Have a great week.